Well, we have it done. I think I built this thing in record time, a little over a week. I wish I could put more video into the product, building the airplane with all the intricacies of building and some of the things you have to overcome because it's a brand new design. It's even though it's built in the same factory as the Alchemy and many of the extreme models that you've flown in the past, there's always a few surprises that you have to handle and deal with. But I have to say, the model went together really good. It's as it sits, 4,900 pounds. I was thinking of pre-build weight.
I was gonna say 69 is oof.
Yeah, after everything's said and done with the equipment you sent, I kind of complained to you about the weight of your speed controller. What speed controller you're running?
I got a Jetty 130.
Yeah.
I think it's a light, but it's still 80 grams heavier than the T3.
Yeah, I'm using the D3 controllers and they're 90 grams, and I just wasn't expecting the weight of that. But with that and the servos that you've given me, which were really 60, maybe 70 grams too much weight, we still got it at 4,900 grams, which is really good. Even being prototypical, it's not the production model per se, we all got to produce another 200 grams off the kit.
Easily.
So I predicted these airplanes can be produced at about 2,250 grams with the gear, and which makes, you can run anything you want, anything in the world.
And I think that'll be a good weight too.
Yeah, I think it'll be, anywhere to 4,800, 4,900 on a pattern model is, F38 model is a really good weight. Talk about what you have in it. I know we were running the V4.
Yeah, so we have the V4 Contra, and we've got some prototype, older prototype 23-inch props from Bryan. I've got the Jetty 130 on there, as mentioned earlier, for the ESC.
You're flying what radio?
Spectrum IX-14.
X-14, and servos you're putting in this airplane, which I complained about being there. What are they?
So I've got a couple different servos. They're all Spectrum servos that are on this airplane. For the tail specifically, I have 5070s on the elevator, and I have a 6350 for the rudder. It works fantastic, plenty of power, nice and smooth. Ailerons, I'm running 6250s, and they've been running on the Alchemies. And, they've been great.
Bulletproof. In a moment, we're going to kind of open it up and look inside, but I wanted to, kind of mention some of your credentials. I know this will be your 5th World Championships in F38. You did 2 F1Ds, F1D championships, 2 indoor free flight.
Yep, and then 3 F3Ps.
3 F3Ps.
Indoor precision aerobatics.
What's your highest placing in the world? Is it 4th place?
Yes.
And that was Argentina, right?
That was Greece for F3P.
F3P. What's your highest F38 World Championship?
I want to think it was 8th.
8th place.
In Argentina.
In Argentina.
Yeah, and that was a good year.
Yeah, and also he's the former junior world champion for F38. And Joe's got some pretty good credentials. He's done a lot of international competing. And this airplane is intended for the schedules for the Australian World Championships, which is going to happen at the end of this year. And I know that every time we go to a different country, we've been around the world, and you kind of try to predict what the weather's going to be like, what kind of temperatures you're going to be dealing with. For Brett and I, we ran YS for so many years, and you always wondered about cooling. Although we live in the South, and it doesn't get much hotter than this place. But, so give me some insight as to what you did on this airplane in particular, and the design in particular, to kind of strategize how you're going to approach the weather in that country. I know it's going to be springtime, so that means normally wind.
Yes.
Hopefully not Argentina wind.
Hopefully not.
But on the good note is, with the B4, we run 6,000 packs, and we're way underweight.
Yep.
And you shouldn't have any problems there.
Yep.
But give me your insight. On the first video I made a few of what you told me, and I made a few comments about the airplane, but I'd like to hear more from you about the airplane.
Yeah, so the airplane itself, for one, it's absolutely gorgeous seeing it in person. It's just, the shine, the lines, the small details on everything, the colors, the way everything goes together. It's just
Factory, I have to commend them, did an excellent job.
looks so good. And that already right there was one of the first things I wanted to check off actually when I was designing it. Because, you know, I think every time I go on Facebook and a new design gets released, there's always the one person that comments, you know, these new airplanes are getting really big, they're getting really ugly, and I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
They're getting bigger, unfortunately, and
Certain beauty that I get over, and you have more appreciation for what's involved in the design when you're involved in the competition effort of it.
Mhm.
And, you know, I have to admit, some of the older pattern airplanes to me were ugly, but some of them are beautiful, and they have the classic lines that everything kind of leaps off of. You know, an airplane can come out, and I always, for me, it was the Typhoon and Henry P. Oren's original Eclipse. Those two airplanes, for me, inspired and motivated me to be a better designer because they look like a real plane. They look like a jet, a miniature jet, you know. Yeah. And I think every once in a while you come out with a design, and I believe this is one of them that really kind of steers the direction of future designs.
Yep.
And that's my opinion, and I like it. I'm a designer myself, and you know, it's rare that I see things that motivate me, and this airplane has done that.
Yeah, and I think this airplane is going to be motivating for a lot of future designs going onwards. I think we're going to see a very big trend for the next generation of aircraft having the area in the back here increase slightly to help with the weather gain and wind corrections. But it also just adds a much more linear feeling on the rudder as well.
Absolutely.
And, after experimenting with it for a couple of years on the Alchemies and the Gemini, and it was a no-brainer to go with this route.
I've had a couple of questions about cantilevers, no cantilevers. You know, I'm coordinated. I had never used a cantilever on my design because I always knew that the purity was where the power was at with setting an airplane up. And you've flown my designs now for what, 10 years? It's been a long time.
Very long time. Yeah.
Never flown a cantilever, never needed. I think it was Italy. I sold 4 or 5 airplanes in Europe after they watched me fly the demonstration flight for the unknowns. And they just couldn't believe that the airplane could do that with a cantilever. So you've taken it one step further and put the power in the back of the airplane where it needs to be. And one of the things I like about the airplane, it's reminiscent of my Valiant design where I had a shorter tail moment. That airplane is where I discovered how to get the most out of rotor power out of an airplane. And the trend for long tail moments on airplanes, I've never been a really big fan of that, but a lot of times you have to take the airplane in the layout where the equipment allows you to.
Yep.
So you have to balance your equipment placement with the layout of the airplane.
And I think that's the other thing you bring up too, is when you mentioned balance. It's not just the balance of the equipment, but also the balance of the design overall and where the elevators, the wings are. Because if you're running a different power system, such as a contrail, that's going to have different effects on everything. And,
Right.
you know, your whole design philosophy changes from there. So with this, it's essentially doing that and finding that very fine balance to make it the best of both worlds for both single prop and a
Right. The good thing about this airplane, we were able to focus more on building it specifically for electric power, whereas some of the designs that I still, because we fly those and I still love those, I have to design an airplane that accommodates a much wider variety of power units. This airplane, we didn't have to have it compromised at all, and you was able to put all of your efforts on just the electric side of it. And that's good, and that helps you hone the design a lot better. Let's talk about the wings and the size of the wings and what your intentions were on this for the wing size.
Yeah, so obviously it's the airplane overall, the design is a much different philosophy than what's been produced in the past, especially with the increased area in the tail, the wider fuse up top, the strakes on the elevators, all of this. They all have different things that they do on the aircraft, and a couple of things that went into the wing design is I wanted an airplane that would snap very well, I wanted an airplane that would roll very well, I wanted an airplane that would be stable in spin entries, and I wanted something that just overall felt very comfortable flying.
Yeah, you mentioned to me earlier too, looking at being spring in Australia had a big impact on your plane
Yes.
design.
Yes. So the springtime when we were in Argentina, when it was extremely windy, and even South Africa as well,
Yeah,
because it was
very
southern
windy.
hemisphere. The biggest issue was the wind, and obviously, the bigger the wings are, the slower the airplane is, and the more it's going to get caught up in turbulence. So it also, the smaller wingspan is really going to help a lot get through the wind
Right.
in Australia. But it's also not too small to the extent to where you can still fly it in perfectly calm weather.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
It's
have it just where you want it to be.
size is relative. You know, we're kind of constricted in size by the rules, and everything that we think about size of an airplane is based on that cube foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a big expanse of what will and what won't work if you take the overall impact of that design and assimilate that with the philosophy that you have. Smaller wings, bigger rear area, the airplane's obviously going to roll and snap better.
Yes.
And I think the Contra adds a new dynamic to where you have more braking power than you would ordinarily have, and you're able to get more flexible on your propeller size, your speed, your penetration. Because of the reduced drag, you don't have to worry about power consumption.
Yes.
You know, all that plays into the overall design of the airplane, and I think it's brilliant. I really do. I love the airplane. As a designer myself, it moves me. What about the strakes on the stabilizer? What have you found about that?
So actually, the honest inspiration for the strakes started with free flight. So we used to do walk-along gliders all the time. So we get a piece of cardboard and you just glide it around like that. Well, I kind of got into, obviously doing different designs because I have to do that all the time.
Yeah.
So, and this design with the strake, both in glider form and walk-along form, was actually one of the most stable platforms that I had on there. So I was curious to see if that was going to transform onto the radii.
Right.
When I come to the radii, if it's going to be a very stable
The stabilizing
elevator.
effect of the rear of the airplane.
Because when you have the elevators that are much, not as wide, but much wider out, but not as the depth, the cord isn't as long on them, it kind of creates this very elevator sensitive feeling radii, where you come down the radii and the tail just wants to either whip around or it just wants to do it very tight.
Yeah, so you're looking for a more linear, efficient
Yes.
feel
Yes.
of input.
Consistent radii, and just make it consistent during the different speeds of the radii as well. That's just, the more stability that there is, the better. You can never have too much.
Yeah, absolutely, and with the Contra especially, you're flying at slower speeds, you need the stability. I think that kind of covers the overall inspiration for it, and I have to commend you on the color scheme. It's kind of the true form of, I would say, engineering, to where it's practical, it's easy to reproduce,
Yes.
and it's not very complicated at all. And I think it's going to be extremely visible. You've flown some version of this color scheme for a while now, and you've
Yes.
kind of modified it and morphed it into what it is now.
Yep.
And it's always been visible in the air.
Yes. And there's more to it as well. So obviously, like the wings, for example, are very close to the scheme on the Gemini, because this is my signature wing color scheme that I've kind of gone with over the last couple of years. But I've made sure to go into more details on the actual paint by doing two-tone reds to kind of give it a semi-three-dimensional.
The picture in the video really doesn't give that impact, because you have to see it in person, see the two-tone red, and it's subtle, but it's really nice.
Yeah, and it's one of the things where it doesn't distract you too while you're flying, but when you see it in person, you can just enjoy every single bit.
Right, on
And
the
that's
ground, it's very pleasing.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're going to open up the airplane and look inside of the airplane, and let's see what we got inside.
Let's do it.
Well, we got the canopy off, and I'll show it in the video. The canopy weighs like 120 grams. It's very well made. It's light. I'm very pleased with the weight of the canopy. We can go up and down in production sometimes. I hope it stays at that weight. We're using inside, we have CKAero Products battery tray that Jason and I worked together, and he came up and manufactures for us and for himself This tray is like 47 grams, I believe, so it's really light. And the center of it will move back and forth, so you can adjust where the CG of this battery is going to be at, and make, you know, minor adjustments to it. And as you can see, we have this speed controller here. It's just mounted on a little carbon fiber tube mounting. The Brenner B4 here we have with his rear mounting system. And if you look inside, there's nothing in there really. It's pretty voluminous, even though the airplane's slim. Batteries up top. And we have the receiver just Velcro to the side of the airplane, which should be fine. And that's it. There's really nothing inside. You can't really see where the landing gear block is here, but there's a landing gear block here, like similar to the Alchemies, and which has worked great over the years.
One bolt takes
it off, and you're done. And the flex is actually in the gear, and it saves the fuselage. You can still break them out, but it really has a big impact on longevity. Let me flip this thing over right quick. Yep. Okay. In our haste, I forgot to cut this ear off. That's one last thing we got left to do here.
That's the final touch.
That's the final touch.
Final touch.
But these are the servos and the linkage we set up. These carbon fiber linkage control horns can be bought through us. They're also made for me by Precision Aero Products in Australia. They're the exact same geometry, because Jason designed these for me, as the ones that come in the kit. The ones that come in the kit are phenolic. These are carbon. It gives it a nicer touch with the carbon, but it's not necessary. You can see we talked about the cooling hole in the original video. Here's the cooling hole cut out and what it looks like. And the rule of thumb is double the intake for the exit. And if you look on the front of the airplane where we've cut the intake, of course you've got the cheek cowls and the intake here. The speed controller sits about right here. Now this little strake right here on the fuselage will actually divert air into this hole. I believe it's going to be wonderful for cooling. And the landing gear and the wheel pants are pretty simple, but here's the linkage for the back of the airplane. The airplane comes with a hole for the rear mount rudder. This is the tail wheel assembly that comes in the kit. Now this airplane, we're going to have to make some modification for production because this lower strake is to a point all the way to the back of the airplane. So what I had to do is I had to grind a flat spot and then put a wooden hard point before we can mount the tail wheel in there. And as you can see, these are skin hinged, top skin hinged in the mold for the elevators. And we have the same carbon control horns here that we use on the ailerons that come in the kit. Simple turnbuckle linkage with some ball joints for connectors, and we're good to go. This arm comes in the control horn kit that we sell, and it comes with the airplane as well in phenolic. So all these components come as part of the kit itself. Talk a little bit about the scheme on the bottom wing and.
Yeah, so I wanted a really good scheme on the bottom. Obviously, the bottom of the airplane is just as important as the top. I still need visibility, but you want it to be different than the top because you don't want to get the two confused, especially if you're in a rolling element far away. So I decided to go with a very simple 3-stripe wing with the two-tone red and some black accents on the outside of it, and it appears very well. It's very visible and it goes with it perfectly, and I think it really brings out the minor sweep in the wings and all the other ways.
Nicely.
And it looks great. I'm really happy with how it turns out, and it's just pictures don't do it justice.
It's really nice. We have like 100% chance of rain today, and it's all 100% falling right now. So it's about 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon here. we're gonna try to sneak out to the field and make some flying videos and maybe show some better pictures of the airplane outdoors once the airplane's all put together. But Joseph, we intend to give you some impressions on the airplane, maybe some setup differences and field differences from the Alchemy that he's flown for 4 or 5 years now, so he knows it very well. And I performed the build and the setup on the airplane. And in this video, you'll see too, at the very beginning of the video, when I do some kind of initial layout, I explain how to find the settings and where to set the airplane for flight. And that's very important for any airplane because the wing area dictates angle of attack. And because these wings are smaller, the angle of attack's got to be greater. So there's some changes to it. If you own Alchemy or you own some of my previous products, there's some changes to the setup. And those changes will be in this video actually, in the front. And that's gonna all be verified on the first flight. I wish I could get the first flight on them, but I don't think I could wrestle it away from them.
Very eager to try it.
Yeah.
Very, very eager. I mean, this has been a 3-year process from, you know, the first initial drawing I did when I was stuck in a hotel room for quarantine. And now here we are in 2023 getting ready for World Championships with it translated better than I could have ever imagined when I first did the little sketch on a piece of paper.
I worked closely with the factory of this airplane because I knew he was going to have this airplane flown in the World Championships. And you know, gauging from my website and the traffic from my website to the airplane, it's very popular. There's a lot of clicks on it. A lot of people are looking at it, interested in it. So this video, I hope, will help people make a decision, maybe uncover some unknown reasons why we've done things or what the purpose for, you know, because people really want to know the purpose of a lot of things whenever they make a purchase decision. It's got to be beautiful, it's got to be functional, and it has to be, you know, light. And I think we've covered all the bases here.
Yes.
So we're going to pack up, we're going to head to the field, and we'll see you on the flip side of this video.